The average congressman is 50 to 60 years old. The average senator is over 60. Everyone has seen the videos of sleeping boomers in Congress. The boomers grew up surrounded by ladders and pulled all of them up with them. That's why there's so many of them at the highest levels of society. Politics isn't the half of it. You'll find most of the elite in general are boomers. But what does this all mean? For one, it has obvious ramifications across our society. When the people in charge are all out of touch and have a strong in-group preference, that typically results in an imbalance of power between that ruling class and everyone else. Typically, that results in armed rebellion. Fortunately for us, that may not be necessary in the case of boomers. I would like to put forth the theory of total boomer death. The idea is simple. Nick Fuentes is wrong. We don't have to vote Democrat to win here. We just have to restrain the Democrats for as long as we can and win through attrition. All of these people standing in our way are frail old men. We could take control of the Republican Party by inheritance. Let me explain how. The expected human lifespan is 73 years. That is an average. Most people, without exceptional health or extreme medical intervention, will not survive beyond their 70s. If the average member of Congress is 50 to 60 years old, that gives us a 15 to 20 year period until most of the ruling class and the homeowners begin to just die. And now comes the part where Fuentes is right.
I need everybody that watches this show, everybody that believes what I believe, that agrees with what I say, I need you to get involved in politics. And by that, I don't mean vote. I mean, you have to join up with your college Republicans. You have to join up with your young Republicans, your Turning Point. You have to volunteer on campaigns. And when the person you're working for wins their election, you need to work in their congressional office. You need to work in this administration. You need to get an internship. You need to work at a think tank. And if you're serious and you dedicate yourself to doing this and build a resume and build a career, you can be very useful for our cause. And it won't take as much time as you think. In not a very long time, the institutions will soon reflect our politics if everybody is doing this. If millions of people are seeing these clips and a small fraction are doing this, and we are the most energized and the most enthusiastic, literally, if we show up, it's ours. And they know that. The pro-Israel lobby knows that. And what's very interesting now is how the hammer is coming down on the Heritage Foundation. So Tucker Carlson interviewed me. They want Tucker Carlson canceled. The Heritage Foundation, the premier think tank in the conservative movement, defended Tucker. And they said, we will not cancel him. And they really didn't like that. Israel lobby, more than they hated what Tucker was doing, they really hated what Heritage Foundation said. And here's why. Because Heritage Foundation is an institution. It's not a personality. It's an institution. Anybody can watch Tucker's show. And most people that watch Tucker's show have regular jobs. But if an institution says, Tucker Carlson fans welcome, then that means that that institution becomes a safe harbor and a springboard for people that are sympathetic to me and Tucker. At this point, what's the difference? It's a distinction without a difference. People that are sympathetic to us will go and they will work there as interns, as employees, as communications people, whatever. And they'll get a resume, they'll get a job, and then they'll go and work in other places. They'll work in the Trump administration. They'll work in Congress. They'll work in policy positions. And all of a sudden, you have people that agree with Tucker and agree with me or agree with Tucker's decision to talk to me, working in the corridors of power. And who knows, in 10 or 20 years, maybe at the highest levels.
What do you think is going to happen if we do what he asks, and then all the boomers who are at the highest levels of power just start dropping like flies? It's a morbid theory, yes, but it's inevitable. I firmly believe that is the future you will see if we manage to keep the left down until that time comes. I realize that's a tall order, but think about how much headway we've made in just 2 years compared to the entire decade of 2010. We just need to keep the heat on them. Talk about their awful behavior. Show the normies what happens when the left is in power. Take a cold, hard look at the mindless violence caused by their policies. Just this week, the killer of Erna Zarutska was found incompetent to stand trial because he's a 68 IQ brownoid. That's the left. That's the result of their leadership. More crime, more violence. If we manage to continue winning this culture war that they themselves started, then we would be winning a chance to completely control America. How is that not the most America first concept? But the question remains, how do you win a culture war? In order for us to actually wash the left out of the culture, trigger warnings and all, we'd have to make all of that shit look distasteful to the normie. That's why the left tries so hard to obfuscate. They make you give 300-word essays on what makes any one concept left-wing for a reason. For example, a leftist watching this video might have smugly asked me to explain how trigger warnings have anything to do with them, as if we didn't watch them normalize the concept over the past decade. They do this to shut down the discourse to prevent normies from catching on to their bullshit. They don't want them to notice stuff like troons castrating kids or activist judges releasing violent criminals. If all the normies noticed just how bad the left is with some of these topics, they'd never vote Democrat again. Beyond that, they'd never listen to anyone openly identifying as a leftist ever again. This kind of person has almost no credibility left outside of California. In a future where all the normies have developed black fatigue, this kind of person won't have any credibility either. Don't you see? If you just point out the critical flaws in every major leftist ideology, they fall apart like a house of cards. All you have to do is keep pointing out those flaws to the normies. Feminism belittles men, knocking them down to lift women up. Transgenderism is a system of mutilation and child grooming built on gender dysphoria. Diversity is designed to make minorities feel better and act as a justification for their inclusion in everything. These belief systems are all just a means to an end. That's the one thing that ties them all together. Even when they contradict each other, they understand that these words are the words they need to say to bring about the result they desire. All we need to do is point out their actual goals. Bottom line, we're not going to beat the left with inaction. They thrive on that. The reason they call you obsessed for merely pointing out their flaws, especially the transgenders, is because they know being observed is their greatest weakness. You need to make fun of them. Calling them out is a good thing. Do not let them fool you into thinking you're somehow the weirdo for pointing out the neo-Marxist, zoo-sadist, transgender demi-queers. You were never the weirdo. You were never corny. And even if you were being a little bit cringe, the person calling you that is on the same team as the people conspiring to make pedophilia legal. Wake up. It's a manipulation tactic. They want you to think that you care too much about politics and that you're the one who's being too serious or too extreme because that allows the left leeway. They need room to operate in order to cede their control for later on. If you deny them that room to grow, then they can't take over anything. Point out the left's flaws. Restrict the left within your communities and gatekeep them all together when necessary. They don't deserve access to the same right of free expression that they denied us for years.